Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. We're back with another issue of As the Tire Turns, a podcast with documenting my year as president of the Tire Industry Association. Today's guest is none other than Mike Berra from Community Retreading.
It's a pleasure to be here, Keith.
It's great to have you. So I have had you saved in my phone for whatever reason because of your old email address.
Still my current email address.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I have a more impressive one that takes a long time to spell out. But they all go to the same.
Well, I don't want to dox you, so I'm not going to give you your whole email. But the beginning is your first initials, right? Your initial for your first name and your middle name, followed with your last name. So you've always been saved as MC Berra. And I guess my question is, are you an MC? Have you ever performed as an MC, participated in a rap battle?
No, I've been an MC of several events, but
Master
I've never
ceremonies.
I've never been.
Not in the music sense.
Right. What was Eminem?
Slim Shady?
No, but what was his thing? They bought their.
The rap battles.
But they called it something.
8 Mile?
No, well, in the movie, but they called it, "Are you going to battle tonight?" I think they called it Battle.
Yeah,
right?
I think something like that. So no.
No, I have not.
All right.
Do I look like I could? Do I?
You do.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I'm very street, as they say.
Exactly. All right. So, in doing this series over the course of this year, I have different people who've made an impact in either my career or within Tire Industry Association, and some maybe potential people for bright future coming forward. But you are actually the guy who, I don't know if you want to say sponsored or whatnot, but
I recruited you actually.
You did. You said,
Has that ever happened to you before? You ever had recruited for anything?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So my question is, I guess, right, as a past president,
yes,
and of course you don't get elected president of the Tire Industry Association. You are elected by the board as secretary, and then you rise up through the chairs. Did you when the word came out that Jarman was elected secretary and would become president, did you have kind of a, oh shoot, there goes the neighborhood type moment, or what was you?
So proud. My babies all grows up.
Your protege.
No, I wasn't. Well, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I was. I think, like everybody, it would be nice to have more tire people involved.
Yeah.
In the board in general. But if they're not, then obviously you want people who are younger. Not that we're young anymore.
Yeah.
But you want people to have some coming from a different place, which I think you've been in a different place. Somebody who rose. He didn't come into a family business. He hasn't been in the tire business his whole life. Well, maybe you have, obviously, but I mean, you weren't born into it.
Yeah.
And then what you did with your company, I mean, it's impressive. So I was excited for you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate
and excited for the industry.
Yeah. Well, and so you mentioned about family business. One of the things I'm always curious to know is, how did you get into the tire industry, because some people have a very,
Yeah.
jagged path and so on. But effectively, you were born more or less into the industry, and
Yes.
you're and I don't know how many generations, but I know it's not just your lineage, right? Your uncle, and so
1935. Yeah, my grandfather.
so grandfather. So I mean, you grew up around tires, and yeah. I mean, is there ever a point where you thought you wouldn't go into the tire industry?
I was going to be an attorney.
Really?
But I thought I would come back to. I was going to go to law school, but I thought I would always come back. I enjoyed working with my dad. I was blessed that my grandfather was around enough that I saw a little bit of him in the tire business, not a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and my uncle was. We used to have more to do with each other as companies. Now we're totally separate companies. But back in the '90s, we would meet semi-annually just because we had the same tax return. We were the same company.
Yeah.
It wasn't until '04, I think, or '03 that we split.
And still similar name, Community Wholesale, right? Versus
Right. So the corporation was Community Tire Company Inc.
okay.
And then we were both DBAs as Community Tire Retreading and Community Wholesale Tire. Now they're obviously totally separate entity, but still family, very close.
Sure.
They were split for to prevent further complications.
Right. And always based in Missouri?
Always based in Missouri. My uncle now, he's semi-retired, and then his son, my cousin Andy, who's probably, I think maybe he just turned 40. But yeah, I think they have 5 locations now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've seen, obviously, having been on the board, and the good thing about being president is you kind of rise through the executive board, but the maybe not so good or good, depending on how you look at it, is you basically vote yourself off the board, right? Or you eventually serve 1 year as past president,
right,
and then you're off the board. So it is a fraternity of sorts. You still keep in touch, but you've seen a lot of different consolidation, and in some cases the manufacturers buying up dealers and then selling dealers and
right,
so on. But anything remarkable that you've seen kind of in your career, or anything that you see on the horizon that's new?
As far as the tire industry goes?
Yeah, just in general, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's for a while the threat was the internet, and everybody was going to be buying their tires online, but obviously you have to get them mounted somewhere.
Yeah.
For a while it was, and I guess it still is, potentially, people buying cars online. Why you'd ever want to buy a car online, I don't really know, but that was a threat. The dealers are going to go away. Well, if you need it worked on,
right,
where are you going to go? There's still such a service component there that I don't think you can Amazon out the tire business.
Right.
So it's always going to be people, and it's always going to be service. So as far, I don't know. I don't know what else is out there as a threat to the way the industry is structured today. But it seems like there's always going to be dealers. There's Sam's and Costco out there, but I would think they're good competition. I don't think they're out there, gutting the marketplace.
Yeah.
So.
And even with all the changes in the EV versus internal combustion engines, which, like your point to the dealer network, is a big change, right? But there's still rubber meeting the road, and so you still got passenger car tires, right? Huge business, and in fact, the EV market, due to the weight and constant under load, right? You're not coasting or rolling.
Yeah.
The wear is actually a lot faster,
right.
on those tires. So, but your business or your specialty is off the road?
It's the bulk of our business. We do quite a bit of contract work for the Postal Service through Oliver/Michelin, their national account, and we're doing tires that are 24 inches in diameter up to 110 inches in diameter on the retreading side.
Yeah.
But the bulk of our business, because we're in the Midwest, is rock. So the tire sizes are relatively in the sweet spot of like a 24-35 and then down. There's some 27-49s out there on 777 trucks, But the big tires are mostly out west, right? And that's where the big mining is, and those tires have their own complications. But yeah, our basic is retreading and repairing off the road tires. We run 8 trucks over the road, most of the Midwest.
With respect to earth mover retreading, we're presently at the OTR conference.
You are.
And
we are.
And to your point earlier about relationships, I think this business and this conference in general, one of the reasons it's thrived is because it's a meeting or a network place, and so I know you're a constant at this event. But can you describe, maybe for somebody who dabbles in the earth mover market, or maybe not even dabbles, but is in that business but hasn't attended this, like what do you get out of this conference?
Well, I think it's if I had to do an ROI to my boss every year, I don't know that I could say, here's the bottom line number, it cost X to attend, but just from a you never know standpoint, even some suppliers, you see them, but maybe you don't get the one-on-one time. You're maybe not as focused as you might be. You walk into your office and there's somebody from, whether it's Myers or Rubber Inc. or somebody, your focus really isn't on what products they might have. We do have customers that are out here. It seems like it runs in spurts. The same ones don't always come out here. But I think it's a great opportunity to get a look at the industry from a little bit higher above, and then from a social standpoint, it's always good to have a phone contact. You don't know when things are going to come up. And part of our business, we don't deal direct with the end user, but we get questions occasionally, and you're one of my references, because I don't know how to mount and dismount a tire. We don't have anybody on our payroll that does that.
Yeah.
But overall, the programs are good. But I think most people would say they come for the networking. How do you quantify the networking? Well, we've gotten a couple large accounts from out here that I could never have gotten, had I not been out here. Right time, right place.
Yeah, I always tell anyone who's intrigued by it, I say, I don't know all there is to know about the off-the-road business, but I can get any answer, right, or I can get an answer to any question, but it's through the relationships that I've made at this event, right? It really is a tight knit. When you get to that big of a tire, right? The industry gets rather small. It's kind of a tight knit community.
Well, and also, my father always reminds me, people do business with people, and I think you'd rather do business with somebody who's supporting the industry, whatever fashion that happens to be.
Sure.
And because then they're likely to be more involved in, with whether it's a training side, whether it's sponsoring something on the training side. Yeah, I mean, I keep bringing more people out here from our staff, because I think it's that good of an event.
Yeah, us as well. Does that mean you'll be in Puerto Rico next year for the conference?
I didn't know it was out there in Puerto Rico. Down there in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
I don't think the official announcement is till Thursday morning.
Yeah.
This podcast won't air before then, will it?
It won't. No.
Okay.
Right.
There's probably copyright somewhere that we would infringe upon, or
NDAs.
Did I sign an NDA here?
No, and I've actually not been told that, but I will, oddly enough, segue from our earlier chat, I will MC tomorrow's.
Yes.
and in that, I noticed that there's the announcement for next year's OTR, and then I think the next line from me is, all right, great, look forward to seeing you in Puerto Rico. So now, they may have fed that to me, right, to see if I can hold that in. So we'll see.
I don't think they think you're that smart.
Probably right. Okay.
Did I know you? When are we getting to this, or am I jumping into a question that you're?
No. Well, actually, it's funny because my next comment, I think you and I met at a Bergy Tire location.
That's right.
Maybe we had seen in passing, at a show. But the next thing I had to
right.
chat with you about was your involvement with TRIB, Tire Retread Information Bureau.
Right.
And at the time, Harvey was the head of that, and I didn't know much about retreading. I was. We were a member, and I said, well, let me go check it out. And I had a couple of distributors in the area I was going to go work with. And I said, well, let me just go. And there was an event an event at Berge Tire. And then I want to say like some German-American club that night where there was like a Pennsylvania transportation, meeting or something as well.
Your memory's better than mine.
Yeah, but I just remembered the suitcase with the gator, that was well traveled. But
usually like 400 or 500 reams of paper. He bring along too, because he had that copy machine. Yeah.
But so that was where kind of you and I first met, but tell me about your work and your involvement with TRIB and or just the mission of TRIB. Right, it's the industry has gotten the volume may be the same, right? I'm not sure if it's measured in units or tons or so on, but the number of players, because of consolidation, I think has gotten much smaller.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, hold on one second. So what year do you think that was? Like 98?
It would have been late 90s.
I think so. And then because then we met over in I think the first time I remember like spending any time with you was in Essen.
Yeah.
And we were down in Dusseldorf for like some magic show maybe. And we took a bus.
Yeah.
And we were on the bus on the way. It was a double-decker bus.
Yeah. So that was in my previous life is when we first met when I was still at ESCO.
Right.
And then correct, that was 2008, and that was my first Essen trade show, or Reifen show was the name of it.
8?
Was 2008, and that was my first one at AME.
Right.
And Rima Tip Top at that show had kind of announced that, they were choosing us as a partner, I guess, if you will, going to invite us to their, in-house show and so on. And so we got invited jointly, I think, to a kind of an evening that Rima had that was like sort of like a vaudevillian type show or something on the river in I should know what river that is. Rhine?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I just remember being downtown at that.
Correct. Yeah, and you're right. It was a double-decker bus that they provided transportation.
Yeah.
But back to TRIB.
We digressed there for a moment. It happens.
It's true.
So my father was involved with TRIB. Harvey was somebody who I probably had known Harvey since I was maybe 8 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
We used to go to the ARA show down in Louisville, Kentucky every year.
Yeah.
Harvey would be there, and he was one of the first few people that treated me like an adult.
Yeah.
It's like some little kid or whatever, but Harvey would always he'd go out of his way, and then he had a son that was about my age, Jason, that he would occasionally bring along, and he and I still communicate. But anyway, so Harvey knew who I was. I knew who Harvey was. He asked me to come on the board, and then traditionally there wasn't really a structure set up. It was Harvey, and the president was sort of a token appointment, And I said, Harvey, don't give me this job if you don't want me to do anything, because I'm not going to sit by.
Yeah.
And so I don't know when I think I became president of TRIB in maybe like 99. I was president of 2011.
Yeah.
It used to be a 2-year term, and then there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know if there's anybody else or what, but somehow I stuck along for probably way too long. But anyway, there was an obvious transition there at the end. But TRIB was, and there was a guy there from Bandag who helped found it, and Marty was a big supporter of TRIB. I don't know if TRIB is here today without Marty. And so this guy's name was Don Schauer, who was a prince of a gentleman. And whenever TRIB needed money, he would go to Marty, and Marty would, because Marty believed, And it was, Harvey was that watchdog when it needed to be a watchdog. I think in today's world, we could all agree that TRIB has transitioned to be more proactive than reactive to what's going on. Not that Harvey had a choice back then. I mean, there was no internet. He was chasing newspaper articles.
That was it.
And the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and of course, like you just mentioned earlier, I don't know if there were 800 independent retreaders, back in the 90s, early 90s. Now there's probably less than 200.
Yeah.
The market is probably 90-some percent, Bridgestone, Band Eggs, Michelin, and Goodyear.
Right.
And now Continental's playing, and Marangoni, but VPAW, whatever.
Yeah.
But those three probably have 90% of the market, I would think.
Yeah.
Of the commercial market.
So you touched on Europe, and oddly enough, despite being both based here in the States, probably as much socialization I've done other than this conference with you has been in Europe.
Right. Well, then when we were on the board together.
That's true. Yeah, correct. That's true. So with that, would you tell me about, I guess, the differences that you see in that European market with respect to retreading and retreading equipment? I know a lot of the equipment still comes from Europe, but those European shows, Rifen, unfortunately, is no longer held in Essen. It kind of gets spun off, and in my opinion, not the same as what it was. There's still the Italian show, or Promotech, but tell me, I guess, a little bit about the importance, because you tend to be a constant at those events as well.
Well, I think no matter what event you go to, if you just stick your head in the sand and all you do is walk the show floor, and you have your blinders on because it's the tire industry, and you don't look at anything else. But then you don't get a lot out of it. If you don't take the time to get to know people, then it's totally different. Again, same thing with this show. I don't know that every year that I went over there, I could come back and say, well, back then to my father, hey, I know it was expensive, but it was really worthwhile. And at the end, I would probably say, well, I had a good time, Dad. Let's just leave it at that. But several times I went over there and I went to somebody's facility. It was either Chima or Matuzzi. I was fortunate enough to go to Rossler's retread plant one year. But I mean, you just saw stuff that you didn't know existed. One of which was a sidewall machine that, it paid for itself in the first probably 3 months. But we didn't know it was there. It was in Chima's scrap pile almost, and there was also a buffer there that I didn't know they had, and so things like that would happen, and then it was interesting to see, such a much more regulated industry over there. I think we've caught up, but they were under much more political pressure for all kinds of things, whether it was scrap tires, obviously much smaller countries.
Sure.
But they had their own association, retread association over there, and they got tied up in stuff that we still haven't been hooked into. And the other thing that was just beyond eye-opening was, I think it was either a year or two before we met in Essen, I was over at REMA's show. We didn't do a whole lot of business with REMA, but no one else had a passport, and they were doing an OTR meeting, and I got taken over by John Garrett.
John Garrett, sorry. Yeah.
And there were there's a lot of industries like that, but it's a university. If you want to open a retread shop, you don't just go out and buy a building. You have to go through the process. So it was interesting to see that industry as a profession, as opposed to just a job.
Yeah.
So, and the repair side too.
If you weren't in the tire industry, what would you be doing?
I don't give that a lot of thought. And I think partially because I've met so many great people.
Yeah.
And it's part of my life.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
I was in Milwaukee with our friend Brett Matschke.
Yeah.
Went up on a Sunday, had dinner with his family.
Yeah.
You think of all the people that you met and the extensions that you had. I don't really know. I wanted to be an attorney until I started hanging around some of the, and there's all kinds of different areas of law, but what I saw was not something I really wanted to get tied up into, I didn't think. So, I mean, some in business somewhere, somehow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where my mind is. That's where my passion is.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Not a professional player of any kind.
Yeah, that's okay. People ask me as well, and I've had twists and turns on my path, but the tire industry's home.
Yeah,
and no,
that's what it feels like.
no complaints from me. So.
No.
All right, as we are wrapping up, I'm going to give you an opportunity for any final thoughts. But before that,
Yep.
being from St. Louis, Joe Buck, love him or hate him?
I'm a huge Joe Buck fan.
Okay.
Really, I think stepped out of his father's shadow. Jack Buck, to me, was and is still the greatest radio football play-by-play guy ever.
Yeah.
He and Hank Stram used to do Monday Night Football, and you would have thought it was scripted.
Yeah.
Because Jack would hand off, Hank would come in, Hank knew when to stop talking. Jack, and I think Joe does the same thing with Aikman.
Yeah.
But I think Joe is a better baseball guy
Yeah.
than his dad, and that's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot.
But
Yeah.
I think Joe is better. I mean, I can see where people get annoyed by him, but I don't think he takes himself too seriously. And
No, I don't either. Last time I was in St. Louis going out of the airport, I walked to my gate and there's a shoe shine guy and there's Joe Buck getting a shoe shine. So
Yeah.
I lingered for a few minutes, got a photograph, and
Yeah.
there it is.
yeah,
And,
I think he's a pretty solid guy.
yeah. Anyway, all right. Any closing thoughts? We just got a couple minutes left.
No, but you have to promise me that when you're done on the board, you're not going back.
We do have a handful of past presidents who are back on the board.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will make that commitment.
good.
Yeah. So.
Good. Because people occasionally ask me, like, do you have it? And do I miss it? Well, of course I miss the people, right?
Absolutely.
And I enjoyed my time, but when you're off, number one, it's time for somebody else.
I was just going to say, for me, I've been on. There's 2 years where I wasn't on. I didn't get reelected, but since '09,
Yeah.
every year except for 2, and it is time for the future. So.
And also, as I tell people, once you've run the show, once you've been the ringleader,
Yeah.
don't go back and be an animal.
Yeah.
Have somebody with that stick.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this issue, we're going to wrap up this edition, I guess.
Not like episode, but
Episode. We're going to wrap up this episode. So,
well, it's been a pleasure.
yeah, thank you for coming out, and we appreciate it. And look
Shocked we
forward-
were able to fill 20 minutes.
I am as well. So, anyway, all right. We'll see you next episode. Thank you. Thanks for listening to As the Tire Turns. Tune in next week when we sit down with guest Deborah Hamlin from Bridgestone Americas.